Assalamu alaikum, this is Maro. Welcome back to the third year of Hijrah. Let's learn about Battle of Uhud. After the Battle of Badr, Islam gained a firm footing at Medina and the importance of the city began to increase. The Quraysh considered the rise of Medina as a threat to their political and commercial interests. Moreover, they could not forget their defeat in the Battle of Badr. Several of the important leaders were killed in the battle and they wanted to avenge their deaths. Ka'b bin Ashraf of the Jewish tribe of Banu Nazir went to Makkah to participate in the mourning of those killed at Badr. He and other Jewish poets wrote poems to instigate the Quraysh to fight against the Muslims. Abu Sufyan, the commander of the Quraysh army, which was defeated at Badr, went to meet the Jews of Banu Nazir, who promised to help. Meetings were held where it was decided to collect funds and raise a strong army for attacking Medina and wiping out the Muslims. Some other tribes were also invited to join in this war. Finally, a fully armed force of 3,000 men left Makkah for Medina. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, conciliated his companions about the best way to meet the enemy. The consensus of opinion was that the Muslims should go out of Medina to meet the enemy. Although the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, had a different opinion, yet when the majority insisted of meeting the enemy outside Medina, he agreed. 3 miles to the north of Medina, the Quraysh camped at the foot of a hill known as Uhud. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, advanced towards Uhud with 1,000 companions. On the way, Abdullah bin Ubayd, the leader of the hypocrites, deserted with 300 of his men on the accuse that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, had turned down his suggestion of fighting the enemy from inside city. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, with the remaining 700 men, reached Uhud and also set up a camp. He posted 50 archers to protect the pass at the Uhud mountain and defend the Muslims from any possible attack by the enemy from behind. They were given strict instructions not to leave their post under any circumstances. Several Quraysh women accompanied the army of the pagans, including Hinda, the daughter of Utbah, who was killed in the Battle of Badr, Hakim, the granddaughter of Abu Jahl, also killed in the Battle of Badr, and Fatima, the sister of Khalid bin Walid. When the fighting started, the Quraysh attacked first. The Muslims fought bravely under the command of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and killed and wounded many warriors of the Quraysh, who began to flee in disorder, leaving behind a great deal of booty. When the archers saw the enemy retreating, they felt their post to collect the booty. Khalid bin Walid, the head of the enemy cavalry, found the opening in the mountain undefended. He attacked from behind. The Muslim force was taken by surprise and there was utter confusion. The enemy tried to reach the spot where the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was. He was wounded in the head and face and lost one of his teeth. The enemy raised the cry that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was killed, and the confusion increased. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, however, stood firmly and called out to his companions to come back. When the Muslims saw their leader, they rejoined the battle. Soon more support came to the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and a group of his companions moved him to a well-protected area at the foot of the mountain. Now the fighting was less one-sided. The Muslims who had rallied put up a determined fight. Both parties were, however, extremely exhausted. Soon the fighting died down and each army prepared to leave. In this encounter, several Muslims were killed and 40 injured, while the enemy lost only 13 of their men. Hamza, an uncle of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was killed by a slave of Hinda, wife of Abu Sufyan. Hinda mutilated the corpse and chewed his liver in order to avenge the death of her father Utbah, killed in the Battle of Badr at the hands of Hamza. It was this occasion that for the first time Muslim ladies went to the battlefield to give water to the soldiers and to nurse the wounded. The Holy Quran mentions the battle in these words: Allah did indeed fulfill his promise to you when ye with his permission were about to annihilate your enemy until ye flinched and fell to disputing about the order and disobeyed it after he brought you in sight of the booty which ye covet. Among you are some that hanker after this world and some that desire the hereafter. Chapter 3 verse 152. Those of you who turned back on the day the two hosts met, it was Satan who caused them to fail. Chapter 3 verse 155. What ye suffer on the day the two armies met was with the leave of Allah in order that he might test the believers. Chapter 3, verse 166. Now let's move to impact and conclusion. Defeat in the Battle of Uhud came as a great shock to the Muslims. They could not understand how they could achieve a victory at Badr when they were heavily outnumbered and shabbily equipped and then suffered defeat at the hands of the army which they had already forced to retreat. Their defeat, however, made it clear to the early Muslims that victory was not theirs by right and that they could not expect to win every battle they fought. The Muslim army was weakened before the battle even began by the desertion of Abdullah bin Ubay with 300 men. His reason was that his opinion about fighting inside the city was overlooked in the favor of those Muslims who wanted to fight outside the city. He forgot the fact that the Prophet peace be upon him himself was initially in agreement with him, but he accepted the other view when he realized that it was held by majority of the Muslims. The Holy Prophet peace be upon him did not see anything wrong in discarding his own view, but Abdullah bin Ubay considered it to be humiliating and deserted with his men. This, however, did not cause much harm at the beginning of the battle when the Muslims were able to achieve a clear advantage. At that point, however, a mistake was made when men placed on the pass in the mountain left their position against the orders of the Holy Prophet peace be upon him. It was a moment of weakness which overcame those believers who wanted to get a share in the booty and diverted from them from the noble goal for which they were fighting. This battle convinced the Muslims that Allah supported them only as long as they supported His cause. They saw with their own eyes the victory changed into defeat when they forgot the real reason for battle and ran for the booty. Another sign of weakness exposed at the Battle of Uhud was that when the Quraysh army attacked, the Muslims did not fight a determined battle. They were scattered everywhere and some were busy saving themselves. They did not respond to the Holy Prophet peace be upon him when he called them. In fact, most of them left him to face the enemy alone. In this difficult moments, he had only a handful of his companions to help him. When the rumor spread that the Holy Prophet peace be upon him had been killed, some of the believers dropped their weapons, thinking that there was no more reason for them to continue fighting. It was necessary for the Muslims to realize their mistake. They were not only defending and protecting the Holy Prophet peace be upon him, but they were also fighting for their faith, defending it from forces which were trying to crush it. Hence, it was not proper for people who believed in Allah and submitted themselves to him to stop fighting and the Prophet peace be upon him was killed. The Quran says, Muhammad is no more than a messenger. Many were the messengers that passed away before him. If he died or were slain, will ye then turn back on your heels? Chapter 3, verse 144. Despite the negative performance of the Muslim army at the Battle of Uhud, it is in fact the earlier in the battle. They had forced the Quraysh army to retreat and victory had been within their grasp. To begin with, the thought of determined and well-planned battle sure to bring about a decisive result. Even though they were heavily outnumbered, many of the fighters displayed heroism at the beginning of the battle as well as when they were a very small number who defended the Holy Prophet peace be upon him. The greatest example of heroism was displayed by the Prophet peace be upon him himself. He was against leaving Medina to meet the enemy and would have been preferred to defend the city from inside, but he accepted the other view when he realized that it was shared by the majority. When things did not go as the Muslims desired, he remained steadfast and did not care for his own safety as the enemy soldiers rushed towards him. The Battle of Uhud was of great significance for the Muslims. The setback that they suffered was not without its advantages. This battle distinguished the true believers with the hypocrites. Those who were sincere to Allah and His Prophet, peace be upon him, were able to pass the test. About 60 verses of Surah Al Imran comment on this battle. They contain only a mild reproach for the Muslims on their failure. This reproach is mixed with advice to set Muslims on the right path and get better results in future.